All right, let's talk about one of the coolest pieces of audio tech ever made, the vinyl record. I mean, it's this amazing thing, right? Totally retro, but at the same time, the precision is, well, it's kind of futuristic.
But seriously, have you ever actually stopped to think about what's going on there? I mean, how on earth does a spinning piece of plastic with some tiny wiggles in it, how does that recreate an entire orchestra in your living room? It feels like it should be magic, but nope, it's pure, brilliant physics. So let's get into it and break down exactly how this whole thing works.
Okay, so here's the big secret, the core idea behind all of this. It's really just an amazing translation of energy. Think about it like this. The sound gets stored as a physical shape in that groove. Then the needle, the stylus, it traces that shape, which creates motion. That motion then gets turned into a tiny bit of electricity. And finally, that electricity gets turned back into sound. It's this beautiful straight line from a physical thing right to the music you're hearing. Now, to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to zoom in. I mean, way in. We're about to go inside the groove itself. And calling it a groove doesn't even do it justice. It's more like a microscopic, perfectly sculpted canyon that holds every single bit of musical information. So here is where the absolute genius of vinyl comes into play. You might think stereo sound means two separate grooves, right? Wrong. It's all happening in one groove. See, the groove has two walls, and each one is angled at 45 degrees. The wiggles on the inner wall, that's your left channel. The wiggles on the outer wall, that's your right channel. And the stylus tip is shaped so perfectly that it rides right down the middle, reading both walls at the exact same time. It is such a clever, elegant piece of engineering, just brilliant. And the scale we're talking about here, it's mind-blowing. Seriously, the groove itself is thinner than one of your hairs, and the tiny diamond tip on the stylus that has to read it, it's even smaller. But get this, to reproduce the high-frequency sounds in your music, that tiny little tip has to vibrate up to 20,000 times per second. That is just insane. That's way, way faster than a hummingbird's wings. It's almost impossible to imagine. Okay, but wait, it gets even more complicated. The record spins at one constant speed, right? Like 33 1/3 RPM. But think about it. The distance around the outside edge is way longer than the distance near the center label. This means the groove is actually flying past the stylus much, much faster at the beginning of the record than at the end. So the exact same sound wave gets physically stretched out on the outer tracks, and then it gets really compressed and squeezed together on the inner tracks.
So, let that sink in for a second. If those sound waves are getting more and more squished together, what do you think that means for our tiny little stylus that's trying to read them?
Well, it means that as the tone arm moves toward the center of the record, that poor stylus has to navigate sharper and sharper turns, tighter and tighter corners. And if it can't trace those super compressed wiggles perfectly, what happens? The sound gets distorted. And folks, that is exactly what people are talking about when they mention inner groove distortion. It's one of the biggest headaches in getting a turntable set up just right. Okay, so we've got our stylus zipping along this insane microscopic roller coaster. But how does that movement actually become an electrical signal? Well, that's where the cartridge comes in. This little box at the end of the tone arm, that is the engine room. That's where the real magic happens, turning physical motion into electricity. And it all comes down to a really basic principle in physics, something called electromagnetic induction. It sounds fancy, but the idea is super simple. If you move a magnet near a coil of wire, you generate a little bit of electricity. That's it. And the vibrations of the stylus wiggling in the groove, they're used to do exactly that. So the physical shape of the groove is literally being translated one-to-one into an electrical signal that looks just like it. Now, there are basically two ways to build this little engine. The most common type is a moving magnet, or cartridge. Here, tiny little magnets are attached to the stylus, and they wiggle next to fixed coils of wire. Pretty straightforward. Then you've got moving coil, or MC cartridges. They flip the script. In an MC, tiny, super lightweight coils are the things that move, and the magnet stays still. This can give you incredible detail, but the signal it creates is way, way weaker. So yeah, two different roads leading to the same destination. All right, so we've got motion turning into electricity. Simple enough, right? Well, hold on, because here comes a massive plot twist. The sound that's actually carved into the record, it's not the real sound of the music, not even close. It's been intentionally altered using a special audio code called the RIA curve.
And you know what? If you've ever made the mistake of plugging a turntable straight into a normal aux input on a stereo, you've heard this code for yourself. What does it sound like? It's awful! It's super quiet, thin, and has absolutely no bass. And there is a very, very good reason why. So, here's the puzzle the original engineers had to solve. Problem number 1, bass. Low-frequency sounds, like a bass drum, would create these huge, wide, wobbly grooves. You'd only be able to fit a few minutes of music on a whole record. Problem number 2, treble. High-frequency sounds, like cymbals, would be these teeny tiny little wiggles, so small they'd just get lost in the natural hiss and crackle of the vinyl surface. The result? A record that was short, thin-sounding, and super noisy. So what's the solution? It's this brilliant two-step process. Think of it like a secret code. Step 1 happens when they're cutting the record. They turn the bass way down, and they crank the treble way up. Then, step 2 happens at your house, during playback. A special little device called a phonopreamp does the exact opposite. It boosts all that bass back up and cuts the treble back down to normal. It's genius. It solves both problems in one move. It saves a ton of space on the record and makes it sound way, way quieter. Okay, so now we understand the code hidden inside the groove. But let's zoom back out for a minute. How does that groove even get onto a piece of vinyl in the first place? And what does it take to play it back just right? Well, it all starts with a soft disc called a lacquer, where the audio is literally cut in real time. From there, it's basically a high-tech metal copying process. They create a metal negative, called the father. From that, they make a metal positive, the mother. And from the mother, they make a whole bunch of negative stampers. These super hard stampers are what get loaded into a giant press, where they squash hot pucks of PVC vinyl into the records that you and I buy at the store. And you know, playing that record back accurately is a huge mechanical challenge. It's a delicate balancing act. Your turntable has to apply the perfect amount of downward pressure. We're talking just a couple of grams to keep that stylus in the groove. It also needs to apply a tiny outward push, called anti-skate, to fight the groove's natural tendency to pull the arm inward. Plus, it has to protect the stylus from every possible vibration, from the motor, your footsteps, everything. And of course, it has to spin at a perfectly consistent speed. This stuff isn't just fussy audiophile nonsense, it's critical mechanical engineering. So let's put it all together. Let's follow the complete, incredible journey of the music, all the way from the recording studio right into your ears. It's this amazing loop of transformations. Okay, follow me here. A microphone turns air pressure into electricity. A cutting lathe turns that electricity into a physical groove. A stamper copies that groove onto PVC. Your stylus traces the groove, creating motion. The cartridge turns that motion back into electricity. The phonopreamp decodes that signal and makes it stronger. Your main amplifier gives it real power. And finally, your speaker turns that electricity back into air pressure. And what is that? That's the music. It's come full circle. So when you really boil it all down, what is a vinyl record? It's stored motion. That's it. It's a physical archive of a sound wave, literally frozen in time as a shape, just waiting for a needle to come along and bring it back to life. So the next time you drop the needle on a record and watch it spin, what are you really seeing? You're not just watching a piece of plastic go in circles. You're watching a physical waveform, a microscopic sculpture being traced by a diamond, getting ready to unleash an entire orchestra right there in your room.